Hello and welcome back to Locking Horns. I'm Matthew Split Melling, and again with me tonight we have Jeff Rigdon, and we're also fortunate enough to have his son John with us this evening. So we were not able to have John last week when we had to sit down and did some introductions, so we're going to get him in this week and see what he has to say about himself. So tell us about yourself.
Yeah, so that's my dad.
Is it?
This is
okay,
my
excellent.
brother.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a practicing heathen.
Okay.
But I think this is a really cool concept, this podcast, and I'm on board for to learn a lot about stuff, but also to share what I know about the culture and the history and my enthusiasm for it.
I've known you for about 12 years now. It's the same length of time as him, and I think you were really dealing with school as a young man when I had met you, but now you're out and you're doing your own thing as far as life, job commitments, etc. But you've always kind of stuck with, as long as I've known you, like studying the history, learning about, the differences between, whatever it is in the history that I don't understand.
On the side as much as I can, and of course, the goal going forward is to be more involved in that, to make that a bigger part of my life. And we'll touch on that in the future, but we have some exciting endeavors coming up. I've been doing little stop motion films with like Normans and Vikings and Saxons, and I've been writing little short stories about all of that, and just doing research on my own for forever since I was a teenager. Yeah.
But growing up with the Viking figurehead, if you would, in the household, you're not a practicing heathen.
I'm not, and he wasn't either when I was growing up as a kid, honestly. So I mean, that's he brought me to church up until I was 16 years old. I went to a Christian church, most of my childhood, and I appreciated that, but it wasn't for me. That's not necessarily it wasn't about the faith. It's about the structure of it. I need more freedom of thought, and to be able to come to my own conclusions rather than anyone of any religion telling me this is the way it is.
Right. Yeah. And I think we'll hear, that phrase, "It just wasn't for me," a lot over the course of whoever we get to interview next. Which, and it seems that at least amongst the people that I know that I've come into contact with, that may willingly share their story, have always it just wasn't for me. Yeah. I needed something else, and it, like I said, it almost comes across as the common plea, if you would. But
well, everyone has to find their way towards whatever it is they believe or their philosophy, whether it's heathenism or something else, and especially with the heathen faith, that's a newer thing. So most people aren't introduced to that as children. I mean, almost everyone, I think, ends up finding that as an adult, as either a young man or as an older man, because it's an emerging religion.
I don't know that it's emerging, but it is definitely
compared to the Abrahamic religions and Buddhism and things like that. There's a big gap in history, is what I'm between.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Where people were practicing it and when people weren't practicing.
This modern resurgence of the heathen belief has, a big to do with modern cinema. Yeah. And things coming and History Channel getting together and doing a quote unquote historical account and making a series of it. That was fantastic. Yeah. And there's several other series that are out there. The Last Kingdom is a fantastic series of Norse stories, but the fact that that is now cinematic and it's in everybody's homes, it's available for everybody to see. Just hit play is really, I think, what has made the huge turnaround for the heathen culture and the faith to, really make a huge resurgence.
It's one of those things that we call a gateway. Watching the television series, being introduced to the history, even though it's not the history, it is a history of the Vikings, introducing the culture, the heritage, the mythology, walking with the gods, seeing how they interacted with people, how they looked at him, how they looked at the gods, how they interacted with the gods. All of that's been on display. Whether it's correctly done or incorrectly done doesn't matter. The important thing is it's a gateway.
Yeah.
It's an opportunity to now spur your curiosity. Perhaps you want to look a little deeper and see if it's actually there. Because in my case, originally, when I first stepped onto the path, as I said previously, I literally thought I was the only heathen on the face of this earth. I did not know that there were other people that were on the path and had been for decades.
Yeah.
Going back into the 70s. This was going on. This was when the Asatru was getting started in Iceland, and I didn't know anything about that. And I was from California. I was living in California at that time.
Yeah.
You would think that some of that would circle to me, but I was spiritual and not engaged religiously at all at that time in my life. Not at all.
During that time, that was also pre-information age.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Even before.
Yeah.
But there is films from the 30s.
Yeah.
There were Viking films from the 30s and 40s and 50s. There always seems to be, like, every decade there was
the Kirk Douglas one.
Kirk Douglas, I remember seeing scenes from that one. I don't know that I've actually seen the whole thing.
Oh, it's wonderful.
Well, that was the first one I saw that gave me Ragnar. That was where Ragnar came from, was from that movie. I also have the book that it's based on. It was made in the 1950s, and I have a copy of it. And it's a lot more fleshed out, of course, because it's it's a novel. But it's historical novels, the movies that are made from them, the television series that are based on history. It's not history, but it's based on history. They condense a lot of history. The comic book Thor, we talked about that. Now, my son was into comic books. He was into cartoons. He was into action movies. He was into the sword and sandal type of things. But John's introduction to the way of the warrior really came through the Arthurian legends. Yeah. It was through King Arthur that I introduced him to the way of the warrior and the chivalric code.
Some time ago, was it Pellinor?
Yeah, King Pellinor.
Pellinor.
Yeah. So he was a contemporary of Arthur, and so he had his own kingdom, much smaller, much less powerful than what Arthur had. But he basically, aligned himself with Arthur, not quite swearing to him, oathing to him.
Went to war with him, but didn't swear fealty to him.
Exactly, yeah. But yeah, he was, I don't know, he was just I guess I knew as a kid that Arthur was supposed to be the hero, and then some of the other knights, Lancelot, and I liked how there was this other guy who was kind of forging his own path. He wasn't the emphasis of the story, but he was kind of standing out on his own.
He didn't get his status and stature by contemporary means.
Exactly. It's the same reason with Lord of the Rings. My favorite character was I always liked Faramir. He was the younger brother. Younger son. Younger brother.
The one that in the film was supposedly set on the funeral pyre. And
right.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But a similar figure. So guys who just kind of forged their own way.
Yeah.
And for me, it was a luxury because, I have a dad who's a great influence, a great role model, but also kind of a powerful, don't know if overbearing is the right word, but just
you're such an overbearing guy.
Yeah. but it's easy to live in his shadow, so you kind of have to move out of it. You have to make an effort to do that, and so I've tried.
He does carry an aura, so you're gonna make your way on a different path.
Yeah.
Let me get away from your ego bubble, sir.
This is the truth.
I need to make room for my ego bubble to expand.
Well, that's the story of Ragnar.
Yeah,
that's the story of Ragnar, and it appealed to me from the origin, from the first time I became aware of him, and he held a drinking horn up and Odin.
Yeah,
it sang to me, and the other characters in the movie or in the book didn't sing to me like he did.
Yeah.
So, but that became the persona that I took on at that time, and I couldn't have been more than 10 years old. That's when it came to me, and I actually started doing artwork that highlighted Viking raids on monasteries at that time, and turned it in as projects at school.
Oh look, what did you turn in for us, Jimmy?
Yeah.
Another fire.
Yeah. Another church on fire. Yeah. Another monastery being raided. Yeah. Would that I still had some of those. But yeah, that's a history.
Man, get you to sign one and we'll sell them.
But another thing that's a gateway, and this is also something that I passed on to my son, were toys. When I was a little boy, 8 years old, the age of my youngest daughter now, I found these little toys that were little Vikings, came in Viking ships, and I still have them to this day. In fact, they're here in this house. Also, other figures that I traded for that were Vikings. And this is back when I was 6, 7 years old. So this is more than 60 years ago. And I still have these in my possession. These are things that I passed on to my son. And he took care of them and then passed them back to me. And I still have all of his knights, all of his castles, all of these toys that now my younger grandchildren and my youngest daughter and now my grandson will have the opportunity to play with. Some of which I've given away to other members of our people, our folk, to their sons so that they would have them to play with. Like that Alamo set and things that are based on history.
Yeah.
Because for me, it's all about history. So my son was brought up in that kind of a bubble, an educational bubble, an absolute passion to learn, to want to know more. And gateways are what gets you to that point. That's where your curiosity is spurred.
Sure.
So that was a gift, I think, that I was able to give to my son, was that same type of passion. Because he amazes me
you've always,
with the knowledge he possesses.
You've been just crazy studious.
Yes.
Yeah,
crazy studious
about things that I'm interested in.
And
which history is
you,
always
like
my
him,
favorite.
maybe have adopted the inventory style memory. You know, your shop. You have to know all this information about all the stuff that you sell, and it's all filed away.
Yeah,
I'm sure you do the same thing with history.
Yeah. It's always been my favorite subject, and it's escapism. I mean, there's I've just always understood that there are kind of two lives that we all live. There's the responsibilities you have, the day-to-day stuff, whether it's with your family, your job, whatever. Your family, obviously, that can be, there's a lot of fun to that. You do a lot of that because you want to. And there are components of your job you do because you want to. But then there's that other side of, it's returning to that childlike, just love and imagination and innocence, and where anything is possible, which your inspiration for that are the myths and the legends and the epics and the sagas, and that's just always been a part of my life. I've always kind of daydreamed about that stuff.
Childlike excitement, learning something new.
Yeah.
But
well, then he also had the opportunity when we first started going into festivals and events, educational programs. He was a part of that with me. He would go with me to the schools, as did some of my other children. But then when we started doing festivals, events, John stepped out in Viking gear, shield, spear, helm, We did the parades, the festivals, the Ren fairs.
You prefer shield or
we
no
did
shield?
a lot.
Shield or no shield?
No shield. If we're gonna be there for a few hours.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, you learn to minimize.
The shield is a photo op thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Nowadays you own a shield. It's a photo op thing.
Yeah.
I'll agree to that.
In battle, I'd probably like to have a shield, especially if there's archers and things. You know,
Sword or
nice
spear?
thing to have. Sword. Well, both. I want to throw a spear and then have a sword. Yeah.
So you're prepared.
Yeah.
You would be a wealthy Viking having all of those weapons.
Ideally, yeah.
Well, I have more than one set of everything, so whatever I have, he has. Yeah.
I think of what I have acquired is 80% gifted to me.
It is now because of our brother, who we'll talk about in other episodes. But
well, even
we have a lot. I have a lot. I had everything, and now I have
from
everything
what I got
plus.
from him. Aside from what he gifted me, I have some other things that just. Here you go, brother. I love you. I want you to have it. Oh my God! What is this? Thank you so much. 20% of my collection I purchased myself.
Well, 80% of my original material I gifted away.
Yeah, I've noticed it's
just gone.
A lot of
I gave it all away because I had nothing else I was going to do with it. Most everybody who came into my association over time had all their own gear. As you, initially I gave you gear.
Yeah, initially you gave me gear. Yeah.
Initially, I provided gear for all of my children, then for all of my folk, for as much as I could, until they started to get their own. And it took time. It's all of this is very expensive. And then there's a lot of upkeep on everything we have. Everything requires upkeep. So I've always seen us as the continuation. I'm not reestablishing anything. I'm not bringing anything back. We stopped 1,000 years ago. We understand that as heathens, we stopped as a people 1,000 years ago and went into a sleep, went into a rest, went into a slumber until we awoken. Now we've awoken now. Now we are awake. Now we are here. Now we're all over the world. There are heathen folk everywhere. And there are many of us who started out just as you did, as someone who wasn't Christian, wasn't heathen, but was on the way. You had found the path, a path that was lined up with heathenry. I tell this to people all the time, and I've said it to my son many times. John is as heathen a man as I know. He's exemplary of everything, every trait, everything we honor in being a drengir, a good man, a worthy man. That's my son. Even if he was my son, I would say this of him. These are people that aren't always identified as heathen. They walk the heathen path, they live the heathen life, but they don't identify themselves, as I didn't identify myself as a heathen man because I didn't know it was available to me. Well, what we've done, this is our whole purpose, doing this podcast and doing Vikings of the Valley and doing everything we've ever done, was to let people know they had the option to be heathen. And if you're pagan, that's good. That's a gateway. That's a path that's aligned with ours.
And it's not wrong.
If you're Celtic, Druid, that's fine. That's a path that's aligned with ours.
Right.
If you follow the Greek way, that's a path that's aligned with ours. It's in tune with the world. It's in tune with the nature. It's in tune with the wheel, the cycle of Earth. It's in tune with that. My son stepped into a different realm of education, knowledge, and background and discipline in the health field, which is all part of being heathen.
Yeah.
To live a healthy lifestyle, to take in good nutrients, to do all you can with it, to live a healthy life. Well, nutritionist works for a nutrition outlet, a series of stores that provide health food and supplements and vitamins and everything you need to live a healthy life, getting away from pharmaceuticals, getting away from fast food restaurant fare, and getting into a healthy eating lifestyle, which is all about who we are. So I, as a heathen father, a Viking father who glories in your success, tell us how being a healthy human being fits in with the style of life that we have as heathens. Why would that be important to your average heathen? Why would we want that?
Because it's, well, there's two parts: taking care of yourself and then taking care of others. And you have to do the first one in order to do the second one. So in order to be a provider to your family, you have to be in good health. And you want to provide good nutrition, good food, good meals to your children, to your spouse. So, I mean, I think that's probably the big part of it. I think there, like you were saying, there's also sort of a spiritual component where you're reaching out into nature to solve problems, and being in tune with nature, not fighting against your body, going with the innate flows. We use this term called innateism, where basically the body can heal itself if you give it the right tools, the right nutrition, the right ingredients. And so that's what I've advocated for, and that's been my philosophy for the last 12, 13 years.
Yeah, and how long have you been in?
13 years.
13 years you've been in doing that. That's pretty impressive. I make sure that people's tires are good, and the oil is changed, and the alignment is good and square, and your vehicle is good for the road.
That's also important.
It is, yeah. It's a different way of taking care of your community.
And your longboat. The rivers that we travel now
are
the
black,
highways
the black
that
seas.
are black. Yeah, they're black seas. That's our whale road this day. So it's absolutely necessary for this to live as a heathen man or woman in this time period, in this technology age. We have to make those adaptations. We have to see it in order to walk this heathen life from 1,000 years ago, to have that perspective. But we have to see it in today's context.
Yeah.
So the information that we have available to us is wonderful. Everything we have on the internet, everything we have in our means of communicating, are all things that 1,000 years ago certainly would have been made good use of. In fact, it was, but it was done through merchants. It was done through people who sailed and visited other lands, brought back information, and brought things back as well. So there's not a lot of difference in how information is acquired. It's just the means of the or the means of that information to travel. So what we're doing today is to take what we had 1,000 years ago and bring it to today's world. Bringing in the sagas, bringing in the Eddas, bringing in the hero sagas gives us examples of how to live a life based on the way it was lived 1,000 years ago. As close as we can get it. It's not perfect, but it's as close as we can get. It's very unique. It's unique for a people to have the Icelandic sagas, to see how families lived, how you live as a family man, taking care of your child, your responsibilities, the people that you have in your life. It's no different than a story that's told in the Icelandic sagas from 1,000 years ago.
Right.
It's exactly the same thing. You'd just be working on boats.
Yeah.
It's the only difference between it. Okay? John would have been a merchant, but he would also have been this other person and this other person, because he had different gifts that he can offer. You have weapons gifts, you have weapons training and skill, and you would be brought in for those skills as well. Every one of us who has our skills, brothers that are great in woodworking, brothers that are great in artwork or philosophy or education, whatever it may be, it all is exactly the way it was 1,000 years ago. What we're doing, sitting here right now, we would have done 1,000 years ago. That's what we're doing as American heathens. We're not Scandinavians, we're not Germans, we're not South Americans, we're not Canadians.
We're Americans.
We're Americans. We have a different, very unique outlook on the world and life in this world.
For sure.
Obviously, we have this ego about us, think that we're better than everybody else and we're superior because we're Americans. Well, the more enlightened of us say, no, that's not true. In fact, we're not in very good shape at all. But we are free thinkers. And we as heathens, this is absolutely paramount for us to be. As you said earlier, having free thought, not being attached to something and so rigidly that you can't have your mind changed. To say that, yeah, this appeals to me now, this is a truth right now, but 5 years from now, that truth doesn't apply to this period in time. This doesn't work for me. I have the opportunity, the right to change my mind, to take a different position. Being a free thinker is part of being a heathen man and woman.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that we want to bring forward in this podcast.
Definitely have to consistently be outside of the box.
Yes.
Yeah. For sure. The physical health part of the world is absolutely, necessary going forward. You say we're doing things now that we did 1,000 years ago. Well, I tend to avoid fast food as much as possible, and actually have cooked meals as much as possible.
Yeah.
Versus, you get the stuff in the supermarket, throw it in the microwave, 4 minutes, it's ready. That may work for now, and it's the short period thing, but, if you have the opportunity to cook healthy foods, eat healthy, live a healthy lifestyle. See, I'm not a fan of taking any kind of pills, prescription or not. I don't want them. I don't want to ingest them.
Yeah.
So with, like, health capsules and stuff like that, I try to... just
most of that stuff's available in food form. If you're willing to eat it, if you're not a picky eater, like like I found lion's mane mushroom growing on your property a few years ago. It's a beautiful mushroom, tasty, great for you, great for your brain health, your nervous system. You can eat stuff like that, but you can also hunt wild game and. That's super nutritious. That's a great thing to provide your family. Venison and things like that.
I put venison on the plate as much as I possibly can.
Way better than the meat you typically find at the grocery store, unless you're going to a higher end one where it's obscenely expensive.
I have been in the realm of meat to cook. I have always been fortunate growing up with livestock, so I always had it came from that field.
Yeah, you knew where it came from.
We know exactly where it came from. But beef, pork, lamb, deer for venison, rabbits, squirrels. We'd eat. I would eat pretty much any meat. That I could harvest or have harvested. See, I'm almost 40 years old. I've been hunting all my life. I've never actually killed a deer. I don't know how it happened. It's just not my way. Maybe I'm not supposed to kill a deer. I'll get one eventually. Maybe, who knows? Yeah. But as far as having healthy foods, I like meat. I like to eat a lot of meat.
Well, I never have either. I'm a city boy.
Yeah.
Born and raised in San Francisco, California. Learned how to shoot. The only shooting of animals we did was varmint hunting, as we talked about. The ground squirrels in California. But I never. I was shown how to, clean an animal after you've killed it. But I was never a hunter. I know how to hunt, but I was never a hunter. I take no joy, no pleasure in it. But I respect everyone who does it. But it's not for me. It's not my thing.
Right.
I have gone out with friends shooting squirrels and things like that, and I've sacrificed animals. We've had live animal bloats, but no, it wasn't meant for me. It's not my thing. But we have brothers that do it all the time, every day.
Oh yeah,
they go out every day, and they're hunting every day, and we respect every one of those people, whatever it is they're doing. I'm not into trophy hunting. I don't like people that trophy hunt, especially if it's endangered animals. To me, it's the wrong thing to do. There's a right and a wrong for everything, and that's a wrong thing to do. But for sustenance, absolutely. I have a herd of deer that lives up the hill behind my home. If I wanted to get them, I'd go bow hunting because I don't want to make any sound, and so that would be the way I do it. But no, it's not a necessity for my life. I don't need to have it. Have you? I don't know that you have. I know we never went hunting but
no, I've never been hunting. Shooting a lot, but never hunting.
I had so many opportunities to go hunting, through my youth, and it was never my day to get the deer. It just never played out to where I was victorious and brought home a kill. But from my uncles and cousins and the people that we've done, we've done like hunting days with. It was always for sustenance. It was just simply, hey, it's deer season. Now we have an opportunity to go out and get some venison and put it in the freezer. And 2 or 3 deer a year can, last you, one venison dinner a week, And
in our world, in our part of the world, venison, deer populations are large, huge. And they're not diminishing, and no one's killing them off. They're not endangered in any way, shape, or form.
We're their natural predators.
We're the only natural predators they have now. And even though they're trying to bring things back, they're bringing elk into this part of the world or this part of our country. Wolves typically would follow.
Yeah.
We do have coyotes. We do have fox. We do have black bear. So we do have some of the larger type predators. There's still bobcat and lynx in this part of the world, but that's it won't surprise me if we start to get pumas, mountain lions back in this part of the country.
That has been reported. Pet, man. I would want one the guard dog on my property.
They're one of the most dangerous animals.
They're vicious. But they're not. If they could.
Well, this fits with what both of you guys were saying. So, kind of the ceremony behind not doing the trophy hunting for a reason. There's a spiritual connection with that.
Yes.
And then you mentioned, avoiding fast food, but also cooking meals, doing family cooked meals.
Yeah.
That the meaning behind that, the ceremony of that.
Yeah.
It's just a lot more special. It means more when someone provides a meal for their family and you sit around and eat it rather than going through a drive-through and taking a wrapper off of something. I mean, it's more nourishing both for the body and the mind and the soul, all of that.
It's absolutely true. Those things that you do in union. This, for example, sitting around a table, having a conversation. This is, to me, I'd much rather have this than I would sitting on couches in a big square where you have to yelling across each other in order to have a conversation, because you just can't do it well. You have to, depending on how many people, you have to keep a little bit tight. In all of the podcasts I've seen that were successful, this is the format that I saw that worked best. Because you can have good, decent, intense conversations, humorous conversations. You can talk about a lot of things because you're close to each other. You're relaxed. You're in a familiar, relaxed, comfortable environment, and then being surrounded by nature, natural things, natural to us as heathens, but natural to the world as well. I mean, what we have on display here, what we have behind us, this is all nature. This is all what's natural to us, what came to us and is being made use of, which is also part of our spiritual journey as heathens, is to make use of.
Yeah.
Not to dispose of, not to throw away, not to fill up landfills, but to make the most use of that which you have. And in this regard, when it comes to animals, we've done this ever since we were formed. We've had drinking horns, we've had deer antlers, we've had ram's horns, we've had skeletons and skulls of all kinds and hides of all kinds have been with us ever since Vikings of the Valley got started.
Common decor.
It's part of our history, culture, and heritage, and it fits so well in today's world. On every program we've ever done, in every festival we've ever done, bringing this to the public is the most rewarding thing we have to offer. The weapons and the armament, all of that's interesting and fun, and we have a lot of fun with it. But this is what sings to us. This is what's real to us. This is what we attach ourselves to, that we can say this represents 1,000 years ago. This is exactly what would have been used 1,000 years ago.
Yeah.
And we would have made the best use of it, not throw any of it away. Whatever we could keep, we kept, and we made use of it. That hasn't changed for us. And that's why we are who we are and why we've been successful for the years that we have. It was we brought a reality to this.
Absolutely.
Not just putting on garb, not just singing songs, not just showing up in public, but we came as heathen men and women that actually represented a place and time that was 1,000 years ago.
Yeah.
That's who we've become. My son came in at the very beginning of all that, at the very beginning of it. In 2005, when we first stepped on the stage with Local Colors, my son was with me. When we first got the rickshaw for Pearl Fu that we used in all of the Local Colors parades and festivals, John was the first one to pull that rickshaw, along with our brother Celtic John.
Yeah.
So almost the entire history, until he moved on to other things where this lifestyle just didn't fit, the festivals and events, my son's been with me, as well as many of my other children.
You've seen the evolution of Vikings of the
Absolutely.
Valley since the get-go.
Yeah.
Fantastic. That's, I mean, me being, the quote-unquote outsider, I came in later, just, to have been in your shoes growing up with that, I thought would be really, really cool. Would have been really cool.
It was really cool.
But I think we're going to go ahead and close it down. Jeff, I appreciate you as always coming by and hanging out and doing this with me. John, thank you again. And hopefully we'll be seeing more of you in the future in your endeavors. We wish you luck. Jeff, same with you. I'll see you next week, I'm sure.
Yeah.
We'll see what we can bring you here in a couple of weeks and see what kind of content we can put down for you. So in the meantime, like and subscribe, grab an oar, grab a horn, join the journey. Good night.